Celebrating the 4th of July and the birthplace of the American Revolution with a heavy dose of patriotic fanfare was an idea first dreamed up 43 years ago. And since then, the entire country has celebrated along with us in what has become a signature event for Boston. Love that. Pairing the 1812 overture along with the cannons and fireworks was the brainchild of David Mugar, the star marketer who spent thousands of hours and about $20 million of his own to keep this tradition going all these decades. But now, 77 years old, Mugar is calling it quits. He expected to pass the baton, but so far, no one stepped up, leaving the future of the iconic event uncertain and Mugar at a loss.
Because I try never to be discouraged in life, but I am disappointed. I don't know what it's a product of as to why that's the case.
It's a conundrum that's hitting the entire Boston community hard and leading to real concern about whether local businesses are willing to step up and support community events like this. Globe editor Brian McGrory on Boston Public Radio the other day said this could be a tipping point.
If we end up next year with no July 4th celebration on the Esplanade, that is going to be a seismic hit on this city's identity and our ability to get things done. It's actually, it'll be a civic embarrassment. Am I allowed to say that, Jim? I'm not a columnist anymore. Should I be?
Perhaps you should. Joining me now to discuss the future of the 4th and philanthropy and the arts in Boston in general, Jim Rooney, President and CEO of the Greater Boston Chamber of Commerce. Good to see you, Jim. Shirley Leung, a business columnist with the Boston Globe, who's written a lot about this, I should say. Hi, Shirley. And Dusty Rhodes, President of Conventures, an organization which plans and markets huge events such as First Night, Sail Boston, Boston Harbor Fest, many more. Nice to see you, Dusty, as well. So, McGrory's right. It would be a seismic hit, huge civic embarrassment. But why are we in this mess to begin with, Jim Rooney?
Well, we've relied on David Mugar for so long, and he's a hero, really, in Boston for bringing this celebration to the level that he's brought it. But we do have a history in Boston to let these things go to the last minute. We deal with them in crisis. The tall ships a few years ago was an example of that. But I'm confident that we'll get to a solution before next year.
So he says. So I want to read you from a columnist in town. She wrote not so long ago, the event lacks a major corporate sponsor, but a national TV contract and bankable stars will almost certainly stir up interest. You know who wrote that? That would be you. It hasn't so far. What's your analysis? Are you as optimistic as he is? What caused this mess?
Well, I do believe that companies will step up, and I'm writing another column right now that says that there were a couple companies that came to the table with sizable contributions. They just couldn't work out a deal with Mugar in the timetable that it had. It's a complicated deal. A lot of companies don't do these one-day sponsorships anymore. They like they like it spread over days or months. I mean, think about when you see a promotion or a sponsorship within the Patriots, for example. I mean, that's a season-long promotion. That's the kind of stuff they like. So I think companies will step up. They just need a new business model for this.
Do you think they're being a little Pollyanna and Polly-Jim-ish? I mean, my sense is what they haven't talked about. A lot of huge companies used to be headquartered here. The CEOs lived in the western suburbs or in Boston. They're now in North Carolina or Ohio. I mean, you lived through this with First Night. You personally, your organization, forget those companies, you essentially, with tens of thousands of dollars, bailed out First Night last year, right?
Indeed, yes.
So when you hear Jim Rooney and Shirley say, don't worry, things are going to be fine, they're fine if somebody like you writes a big check.
Yeah. Well, it needs a new model. It's got, instead of one umbrella sponsor, one has to look at it building blocks. So you're taking this strategy for this company and you're making that sponsorship work, another silo for this company here. So you're using building blocks to get over the goal line as opposed to one umbrella guy.
Why weren't you able to do that last New Year's Eve?
Didn't have enough running time to. We build it with small blocks, but now we've got to do something even bigger and better because First Night, like 4th of July, it's iconic to Boston.
You know, one of the things I read in one of your columns, one of your many columns about this, that was really surprising and I think upsetting me. Fidelity not only is still here, big time, and family owned, and is a huge philanthropic organization, the BSO, the Pops, etc. They are sponsoring a major event like this, but they're not sponsoring it here. Where are they?
I think North Carolina,
North
right?
Carolina. What is that about?
Well, they've got a big presence in North Carolina too. I mean, I'm hoping that with the new model, there'll be a big umbrella sponsor, and maybe there could be a sponsor for like concessions. You know, the official beverage of the Esplanade event. Maybe there's more merchandising involved. I mean, I think there needs to be a way to monetize the event, just like the Boston Marathon got monetized with John Hancock coming in. And if you think about everything is monetized there.
Yeah, but it's not just, it seems to me, about this monetization thing. I mean, you represent a ton of businesses in the chamber. It seems to me, can you get much better publicity than having, it's not just an event. This is one of the biggest events in the city. Most years people do see it all over the country. Having your name planted on it seems to me to be a pretty big deal, and not having a name so far seems to be a troubling deal, despite your optimism.
Well, they'll see it all over the country this year. They haven't for a few years because that national contract was dropped. I think Shirley is right that a new model and talking to businesses the way they want to be spoken to, all of those companies that are based in or located in Boston, they are contributing millions, tens of millions of dollars to the arts and other types of programs. I think it is the package that needs to be reinvented for purposes of meeting their needs in terms of exposure and other reasons.
There was a study a couple of months ago saying that it compared to comparable cities across the country, corporate contributions to the arts are way low in this community. This is not a wonderfully art-centered
corporate contributions are up 2%.
To all things.
All things. Companies do have strategic initiatives, be it early childhood education or not-for-profit. So all of these companies have focus areas that they get into, and they do have ways of analyzing what they put their money into, and they have to be met on their terms.
Dusty, couldn't that be part of the problem too? I mean, there is a social consciousness in a lot of these companies in Boston. And is it possible that they're redirecting away from major celebrations into homelessness or whatever it is?
Exactly. They have found their lane, whether it's the foundation side of them or the marketing side. They've found their lane, and they put up the fence saying we only give to childhood early education. We only give to STEM. So they're finding their lanes, and they're keeping those fences up. So if you're trying to get them to come over and look at a big branding opportunity like this, they're going, we're not into branding, we're into education or whatever.
So you're the fixer. I mean, didn't you get her involved in first night?
I did.
Somebody called you called her, you write a column. I mean, so play fixer. Well, I'm going to ask you all to play fixer. Cut a deal.
Right. So I heard Steve Wynn took a serious look at underwriting this year's celebration.
About to have a casino in Everett.
Right. And didn't work out because he hasn't been able to break ground yet. I think he's going to take another look in the fall. I mean, he would be a great sponsor of this event. He's from Las Vegas. They know how to put on a show, and he's got the entertainer contact.
But he's the newest kid in town. Let's not excuse the older kids in town.
Well, right, but he could be the presenting sponsor, and then you can get Fidelity back, you know, and say, can you sponsor this part, a segment of, not the whole thing. I mean, you got to break it up into parts because I think it costs about $2 million to put on this event, and that is that is more than companies are willing to spend for sponsoring an event like this.
Am I naive to think? I mean, this is the world in which you travel. That if Charlie Baker picks up the phone, or Marty Walsh picks up the phone and calls a bunch of, not Shirley Leung, as powerful as she is, and calls a couple of companies and says, come on, we need $400,000, we need $300,000. It's good for you, good for the city, good for the city's kids, good for tourism. Don't they say yes to those people?
It matters that they are behind these events and the success of these events. It certainly matters. But I think approaching companies with this, we need $2 million, and having that conversation about what you're going to get for it and what the delivery is part of that conversation. And maybe that hasn't taken place in the way it needs to take place.
I asked Jim this at the beginning, but let's end with this. Do you both agree with McGrory that, well, he's your boss, you have to agree with him?
Yeah, I do.
I mean, this would be a huge civic embarrassment if essentially the Esplanade is empty a year from next Monday.
No question. Talk about the economic impact, because 34% of the tourism dollars come from July and August. And you take away that hit, it's pretty major.
Well, also, it makes it sound like we're small town Boston,
It's not going to happen.
Right?
You know why? Because it'll be a political embarrassment to Mayor Walsh and to Governor Baker right before they're gearing up for re-election.
Yeah, just like they won't let the Olympics get out of town, right? That'll never happen because.
The most important thing is to look at the structure of what it costs and where are those economies. And I think that's the first place you begin.
But the branding issue
15
is
seconds.
we need to reclaim our ownership of the birthplace of America, and we haven't done it. That's why we got involved in the Tea Party ship a couple of years ago. We need to take this on at a similar level.
How about the Greater Boston July? Well, in any case, Jim, Rooney, it's nice to see you. Shirley, it's great.
Good to see
Dusty,
you.
Nice
Thank
to see
you.
you too.